Hey everyone, here's what's coming up tonight on Now. Marissa Kennedy's family is one step closer to justice after her accused killer has pleaded guilty to her murder. We'll have the details.
We've heard so much about aquaculture recently. Well, tonight we're diving into the world of farmed scallops. It's a new way to make money on the ocean.
Speed limits. Is that a rule or just a suggestion? For a lot of people, it's the latter. But what if your car had the technology to keep you at the speed limit always? It's real. It's being tested in Europe right now and may be on its way to the U.S. We'll talk about it tonight. This is News Center Now. Good evening, everybody. I'm Lee Nelson.
And I'm Lindsay Mills. We're glad you're with us, and we're also glad that we're getting some relief from that heat.
Yeah, I guess so, right?
Yeah.
As long as it's not
like
all
heat,
week
though.
long and that it's going to rain, but a little relief is good. Yeah,
That's good.
Yeah.
Let's
Here's
check
Keith.
with Keith.
Mama Mills, what did you think of this? Were you okay in the
I
heat?
survived.
Pregnant women tend to not enjoy it.
No, it was hard. I couldn't breathe at times.
Yeah, no, it does. It like everything gets squished in there. It gets a little bit harder.
So true.
Things settling down now, and this is such a big change, right? Felt like peak summer over the weekend, and then bringing it down, temperatures coming down, and consistent rain, which we haven't had much of over the past three and a half weeks, and it's pretty much statewide at this point, and there's more where that came from. So it's going to be overnight tonight and through the first half of tomorrow, especially along the coast, that we deal with this rain. Some severe weather down to our south, but we don't have any of the dynamics necessary to pop off any severe storms. Interesting because technically the dew points are still a little high here over southwestern Maine in the upper 60s and mid 60s. But of course, since it's not that hot out, it's not all that uncomfortable. But you'll feel it a little bit if you go outside, that it's got that slightly tropical feel still to the air mass over western and southwestern Maine into New Hampshire. Obviously, this model just does not know what's happening in the world right now because it is raining all the way up here and it has it back here. So keep that in mind as we progress this forward. So it will be raining overnight tonight. My point is simply that the timing is off a bit, so we probably clear out around midday or so in most spots as far as the rain goes, and then the clouds come in behind it and we clear out around sunset tomorrow late afternoon into the evening, and then we're in pretty good shape. After that, guys, we're going to rip off a great stretch of weather. It looks like basically potentially from Wednesday morning to Monday night of the next week we might be dry. So we'll talk about what the temperatures are going to correlate with in just a few minutes.
Very interesting. Thanks, Keith.
All right, we'll get to some headlines for this Monday evening, beginning with this. Senator Susan Collins throwing her support behind a bill to double the penalties on phone scammers. Specifically, this targets scammers who spoof their phone number, so it looks like they're calling, they're a friend calling or a neighbor or the FBI or some other legitimate organization. Billions of these calls are made every year, and in Maine alone, Senator Collins said 93 million people received spoofed calls last year.
A Lyft driver in Wisconsin is behind bars after police say he pointed a gun at a passenger. It happened Friday night. The passengers say they asked the driver to make a U-turn and an argument started, so they hopped out of the car, and that's when they say the driver started driving towards them and pulled out the gun. The driver has been fired. The company says he will never work for Lyft again, calling his behavior, quote, unacceptable.
Equifax has settled a big lawsuit with the Federal Trade Commission, and the payout is going to hurt. Equifax will pay up to $700 million to the FTC and private citizens after a breach 2 years ago that exposed the Social Security numbers and other private information of nearly 150 million people. About $425 million will be going to consumers. This settlement is the largest data breach enforcement action in history.
The Food and Drug Administration is taking its fight to prevent e-cigarette use to the airwaves. The agency launching its first 2 TV ads warning kids about the dangers of vaping. The ads feature street magician Julius Dean, who turns an e-cigarette into a cigarette in front of the audience's eyes. Studies have shown that teens who vape are more likely to start smoking regular cigarettes. The FDA also plans to put up new posters in high schools and provide educational material for middle school students as well.
LL Bean is expanding north, as in Canada. On the 23rd of August, Beans is planning to open its first Canadian store. It'll be just outside of Toronto. It also launched a Canadian-specific website last month. LL Bean has been international, though, for some time. It already operates 28 stores in Japan. There's a call center and a distribution center there as well. But the retailer doing things a bit differently in Canada, where the company has joined forces with Toronto-based JTEX Group on the LL Bean branded stores. New York has become the first state to ban the declawing of cats.
This is very interesting. The law was signed today by Governor Andrew Cuomo after lawmakers passed it in the spring. Animal welfare advocates and many veterinarians say the once common operation is unnecessary and cruel. It involves slicing through bone to amputate the first segment of a cat's toes. This hurts me. New York's largest veterinary organization had opposed the bill. It argued that declawing should remain a last resort for cats that won't stop scratching furniture or humans. The declawing process is already illegal in much of Europe and Canada, as well as in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Denver. Just leave the cats alone.
Hurts me too. Oh,
I know. Ugh. Carmack has just announced a new personalized car buying experience.
Yeah, apparently you can now buy a car from the comfort of your own driveway if you want to. The company will have the car delivered to your home or work. You can get a no-obligation test drive, and if you like the vehicle, you can buy it right there on the spot. Customers can also opt to do the financing and the paperwork online and then complete the purchase in person for expedited pickup. The program has already been rolled out in Virginia, but Carmack says it should be available in most parts of the country by February.
The biggest movie of all time? There's a new one, at least in terms of dollars made. After Avatar's impressive 10-year reign as the box office champ, Avengers Endgame has officially taken over the top spot. Over the weekend, the Marvel blockbuster's total global gross topped with $2.79 billion. The studio released Avengers Endgame in theaters last month to push the epic finale to greater heights.
However, this is in terms of most dollars made, right? And with inflation, new movies are going to have a huge advantage. But what's the film with the most tickets sold, regardless of price? The answer is Gone with the Wind, which came out back in 1939 when most movie tickets were about 25 cents.
Very cool.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a break. Coming up, a big change in the court case of Marissa Kennedy. I'll tell you about that.
Yeah, man, Maine scallops out of season and out of the ordinary. How aquaculture is helping fishermen secure their future on the water. Welcome back, everyone. Marissa Kennedy's family is one step closer to justice after her accused killer pleaded guilty to her murder this afternoon in a Waldo County courtroom.
Yeah, Marissa, as you'll remember, was just 10 when she was found brutally beaten last year. After months of abuse, she passed away. Our Samantha York was in the courtroom today. She's got the details.
Julio Carillo back in court Monday afternoon, this time pleading guilty to charges of murder, all while Marissa Kennedy's family sat listening in the courtroom as prosecutors mapped out some of those tragic events that led to her death.
How do you now plead to that charge? Guilty.
A change in his plea, but not in his story, as Julio Carillo takes full responsibility for his actions, beating 10-year-old Marissa Kennedy to death.
This is Julio trying to take a step forward, a positive step forward in the face of this tragedy.
Despite waiving his right to a trial, state prosecutors still shared their case with the judge, presenting detail after detail about the terrible abuse Marissa was facing behind closed doors, all while her family sat listening.
This was a heinous crime. It's affected the entire state, and we're glad that he was finally able to step up and admit what he had did to his stepdaughter.
Carillo's family releasing this statement exclusively to News Center Maine, saying in part, quote, "They are at peace with his decision, but by no means does this plea excuse or clear Sharon. He did not act alone." Julio's attorney echoing that outside the courthouse.
This is Julio taking responsibility for his part. It's not an exoneration of Sharon.
However, an attorney for Sharon Carillo, Marissa's mother and other accused killer, says otherwise.
We'll be asking them to dismiss charges. Whether or not that will happen, I'm not sure.
While those details and others remain up in the air, Julio's attorney says one thing is certain. His client is ready for a fresh start, and if he's asked to testify against his wife, he will.
When the facts come to light, and if that case goes to trial, you'll see that she's just as responsible for Marissa's death as Julio is.
Now, this is a case that not only rocked Waldo County, but the entire state. And since her death, there's been an outpouring of support from those looking to keep Marissa's memory alive. Those in Stockton Springs say Marissa's death is still very much felt in the community. And they've done things like create a memorial shelf at the town's library in her honor. And they're now even working on a memorial stone.
Not a day goes by that someone in this community isn't thinking about Marissa. We take care of each other, and this hit us really hard, and it will not soon be forgotten. We definitely still feel her here and are optimistic about the future of preventing such tragedies from happening again.
Carillo will be back in court on August 28th for sentencing. State prosecutors say they'll be asking for a life sentence. In Belfast, I'm Samantha York, News Center, Maine.
All righty, time for another short break. Coming up tonight, time certainly changing for Maine fishermen. We're going to look at a new innovation that is giving the industry a boost.
And we survived the heat this weekend. Keith's back with his forecast next.
So unless seafood is not your thing, and it should be, there isn't anything really, especially this time of year. It's just great to have a fresh catch, you know, just fish or scallops or clams or whatever it is. Just awesome.
I agree. It's all delicious. But there's actually one staple of seafood that's the season is actually in the winter time. But thanks to new aquaculture innovation, you can get it year round. That's now a reality. But for fishermen, it means so much more.
The sky is clear and the sea is calm, the kind of summer day people would pay to be on the water. For lobstermen like Peter Miller, he has to be on the water to make money, but he feels his career is on the line.
I used to be able to make money year-round. Now I can't do it.
Miller says times have changed since he started fishing decades ago, with fewer opportunities for the next generation of fishermen to make a living.
For young guys, if you're not lobstering, or if you weren't lucky enough to get a scallop license, for wild caught, there's no shrimp season anymore.
Now he's taking matters into his own hands.
See, there's a couple.
Teeny tiny matter to be specific. These little scallops show the start of the farming process. Nets collect what's called spat when wild scallops spawn, usually around September. Months later, the spat will look like these baby scallops, and then they are transferred to these lantern nets, where they continue to grow until they are sold.
It creates opportunity for the young fishermen, young people really of Maine, to maybe stay in the state and make some money.
Miller is a member of the Maine Aquaculture Co-op. Since 2016, a group of fishermen and aquaculturists have been using a 4-acre farm off the coast of Tennant's Harbor to grow and harvest scallops.
I just want to make sure there's a way for people to continue to make a living on the water.
Merritt Carey is a founding board member of the co-op.
A lot of our work right now is educating consumers and chefs about what to do when they get these smaller live scallops, because it's not what they're used to when they think of scallops.
Fishermen aren't limited to a set season or size rules.
We can sell them live, or if we want to shuck them, we can sell them year-round.
And Miller can continue to catch lobster while he tends to the scallop farm at the same time. But he admits it hasn't been easy so far. He's had his fair share of failures. One may wonder why take on something brand new like this.
It's been quite a while since I've done anything stupid, so I was due.
All jokes aside, aquaculture could keep him afloat.
It's really diversification. If you don't diversify, then what do you have?
These farmed scallops are sold per piece, similar to an oyster. Prices range anywhere from 85 cents to $1 per piece. And several local chefs have already shown interest in these, and the word's got out as far away as Chicago. We have much more on the process of farming scallops at our website and mobile app.
Love scallops.
I know, delicious. Good vessel for butter. Anything.
Yeah, a lot of those things there.
Me, I still need to expense our dinner
Yes.
from the Yarmouth Crab Festival, which we had crab roll and
a lime Ricky.
Ricky.
So good.
You didn't eat anything, did you? Was that it?
I took
I
off.
had the lime Ricky.
I took off.
I know.
We had the blueberry pie.
Oh, we did have a bite of blueberry pie.
Yeah.
Right.
That was
Which was
delicious.
tremendous.
They have a lot of good options there, but it's confusing because all the signs are exactly the same,
Yes.
but they have different items.
Right.
Like we're visual creatures, and I'm like, why does it all look the same? What do I want?
Help me.
We were like deer in headlights.
Yeah,
looking.
it did take me a while actually. Lindsay had to sit through that, but that's all right. Get some rain out there right now. It's interesting because the radar depicts it as a little bit heavier than it has been, but it's consistent almost statewide, and northern Maine being the exception to that rule at the moment. A couple of downpours in there. Severe weather down to our south and southwest. We don't have any of that low-level shear, the characteristics necessary to have severe storms. So we're just looking at plain old light to moderate rain overnight tonight and through the first half of tomorrow. It's actually been a little while since we've had, a day, 24 hours or so of rainy weather, but we'll pop up on the other side and you'll like what you see. Dew points in the 60s, as I mentioned, a little tropical. Still over southwestern Maine into New Hampshire. The northern Maine has a different air mass. Those dew points are in the 40s. It's almost crisp. So it continues raining overnight tonight. The heaviest stuff you can see definitely hugging the coastline as opposed to inland. And northern Maine stays dry through much of the night tonight through the day tomorrow. Start with rain along the coastline, and we should be able to clear it up by about midday. Still cloudy probably in the afternoon, and then we swing that clearing line through around sunset, which could make for a pretty rad sunset, so we'll keep an eye on that. There's actually websites for that. It's like a sunset forecast. It's based on the type of cloud cover, the direction of the cloud cover. It's pretty cool. I'll have to find a link for that at some point for raindrops. But after that, on Wednesday, we've got some coastal cloudiness, and then we clear out Wednesday afternoon. And from Wednesday afternoon, as I mentioned, straight through the weekend, we should be in really good shape. Rainfall amounts from this system could be over an inch. I think this is probably slightly overdone. Most of us are probably looking at about an inch of rain. Heaviest amounts over York County and into New Hampshire. So there's that kind of patch of rain. It's a little low, baggy low that moves through tonight and tomorrow, and then high pressure builds in from the west and doesn't really give any room for any storms to move in after that. So our temperature trend will be up, and this is going to be a gradual and comfortable way to do it, going from the 70s Wednesday, Thursday up into the mid 80s Friday, Saturday, and then probably upper 80s to low 90s on Sunday into Monday. So we'll go right back to the warmth. I believe that today and tomorrow will be the second and third days below average in July. I think that's it. I'll have to double check on that, but we haven't had many. Yeah. Thursday looks good, Friday looks fabulous, Saturday looks good, Sunday looks good, and then we'll be back to around 90 away from the coastline on Monday. Should be shorter duration kind of heat and not as obnoxious as this weekend was. But nice. It could be another great weekend, which is, it's almost like we're stringing it together in a way we very rarely do. I was at the beach yesterday with Luca, and I was like, oh, we're going to the beach again? Like, that doesn't really happen usually in Maine, but that's where we've been at.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
It's great. It's been great. Thank you, Keith, so much. All right, this is interesting. Speed limit signs. They don't really stop speeders, right?
No.
No, they don't. But within the next few years, your car might just slow you down.
Not that I would know. Well, there's a lot of new technology in the world of automobiles, and this type could be coming to where you get your cars fairly soon.
New cars could soon come with technology that would prevent you from speeding. But how does that work? Let's connect the dots. Whether or not you think you have the right to speed, you may not have a choice in the future. Europe passed a law requiring all new cars by 2022 to restrict vehicle speed to the posted speed limit. European officials estimate it will save 15,000 lives over the next 15 years. The technology is not that new, and it relies on driver assistance tech already in a lot of cars. The vehicle knows posted speeds thanks to a combination of cameras and GPS. And if you try to go over the posted speed limit, the car will restrict the flow of fuel, forcing you to slow down. Here in the U.S., there already have been calls for this to be done on commercial vehicles, think 18-wheelers and long-haul semis. And Volvo announced it will automatically limit the top speed on all its new cars to 112 miles per hour, way above speed limits in the U.S., but far below what most cars are capable of. So in the future, if you have that need for speed, you might have to stick to a classic car. Connecting the dots, I'm Larry Seward.
Okay. Okay.
All right, and this, we know Tom Brady can take some chances sometime, and this year he got his whole family in on the fun. Patriots QB posting, showing himself and his daughter cliff jumping in Costa Rica. It's not a really high cliff, but the video shows Tom counting to 3 and then leaping off, holding hands with his daughter Vivi right behind him. The two splash down in the water. It appears Vivi enters kind of sideways, and Tom makes a cleaner jump. Of course, a lot of people questioning why he did this and that it didn't appear safe. The story took a different turn on our page, though, with almost all of the commenters saying it's his life, he can do what he wants. And if you watch a little bit more closely, you do see that she's up there first. She's trying to make this happen. She has a momentary pause, but it's too late at that point. He's going in with her.
I wonder, too, if it's the angle of the footage. I mean, if we had seen it from the water up, we might have seen that maybe it wasn't so steep.
It's not that steep.
Yeah.
So anyway,
that's all right. I think I've done crazier things in my lifetime,
All right, and so is she.
He jumped off a higher one. Do you remember this?
Yes,
a year ago.
Yeah,
so he clearly loves doing that.
Yeah.
And everybody was mad at him because they thought he might hurt himself.
Right.
So now it's about his daughter.
TV12 taking off the heat.
Anyway, we got a lot more news coming up for you in the next half hour. The Irish ambassador to the U.S. is in Maine, celebrating the historically close ties between Ireland and Maine. But there is something on his mind that is worrying him. We're going to hear from him about that at 5:30. Plus, were you a little hot this weekend? You are not alone, which you would know if you are pretty much near any type of water. We're going to take a look at businesses that were rocking this weekend and some that were sweltering. It's all coming up next on News Center at 5:30. Back to you.
Sounds good.
Raindrops after this.
Okay, before we get to brain drops, I just wanted to, I always am interested when we talk about an event that people are really, there's a lot of buzz about the heat.
Sure.
So I said I always like to check my messaging. Was this weekend as hot as expected, hotter than expected, lame, wasn't even hot? So the good news is I think we portrayed it well. These people are just lying.
Yeah, what are they saying?
You know who these people are? They're the ones who see really great movies and say they're not very good. You know what I mean? They're just like, they're just those people. All right, let's go to the actual brain drops. I thought this was interesting. On the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11, India tries to land on the moon in its second try. It shows you how advanced that mission was. This would be the 4th country to land on the moon, but it would take 50 years longer. Now, to be fair, India has taken images, some really good stuff of the moon. They first discovered water on the moon, which was revolutionary. I believe that was in 2009. But it just kind of, again, trying to land on the moon at this point when it was done 50 years ago. The United States, China, Russia, and then it would be India.
Interesting.
Or was it the Soviet Union? I forget what they called themselves at that time. But
it's like the cover of Time magazine right now is the next space race.
Right.
It's pretty
I'm
cool.
into it.
I'm
into the sciences.
It is cool. All right, that does it for us. News Center Maine at 5:30 starts right now.